Good evening, everyone, council colleagues, members of the public. Thank you for joining us this evening. Per our city charter, each year before our first council meeting in March, we are to be joined by the mayor for his annual State of the City address. I am pleased to welcome our Mayor Luke Bronin for his sixth State of the City and look forward to his remarks. Mayor Bronin, you have the floor.
Council President Rosado, members of the Court of Common Council, Treasurer Cloud, Speaker Ritter, and our delegation to the General Assembly, and members of the Board of Education and our superintendent, my colleagues in city government, and residents of the city of Hartford, good evening from the Swift Factory on Love Lane. When I delivered the State of the City address a year ago, we had not yet seen a coronavirus case in Hartford. The first coronavirus case in Connecticut had been detected the day before. I said that night, there is a chance that we'll have to change the way our government, our schools, and our businesses operate. I also said that the coronavirus too shall pass, and that as a community, we'd been through much harder things. I was part right and part wrong. Things changed completely, and yes, the pandemic will eventually pass. But I don't think we've faced much harder things. None of us imagined then how long this pandemic would last or what a heavy shadow it would cast. Over the past year, 14,255 of our fellow residents have contracted the virus. 1,026 have been hospitalized. 278 mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, grandparents and grandchildren, friends and acquaintances have lost their lives. That's 278 lives lost in our 18 square miles. In a few weeks, we'll hold a commemoration on the anniversary of the first death in our community related to COVID-19. Last fall, we planted 5,000 daffodils in Hope Gardens across the city. Those flowers will soon bloom. But tonight, please join me in a moment of quiet prayer for those we've lost. Please also join me in gratitude to everyone who helped somebody else make it through this year a little healthier, safer, or a little less alone. Sarah and I and our 3 kids are so proud and grateful to be part of this community. Last spring, with jobs vanishing and senior centers and schools closing, our city came together to keep kids and families and seniors from going hungry. Hartford Public Schools distributed 2.3 million meals to students, with our Department of Families, Children, Youth, and Recreation helping out. Our public works team and police cadets delivered 85,000 meals to seniors and our homeless shelters. Churches like Mount Olive and the Citadel of Love and Phillips CME distributed dinners together. Community members formed La Bodeguita to help feed our undocumented neighbors. Food Share organized the distribution of 4 million meals to its network of 90 Hartford-based partners. That work continues now, because even now, so many families in our city and beyond are struggling to buy food and pay rent. Faced with the possibility that our homeless shelters might become places of mass transmission, we worked with our partners in the Coordinated Access Network to prevent that, quickly shifting shelter residents to hotels and doing routine testing. Because of that work, the overall positivity rate for our sheltered homeless community throughout this pandemic has been 3%, without a single life lost to COVID. We saw early disparities in testing in communities of color across the country, and we pledged to make testing accessible here. And there are few, if any, cities in the country where COVID-19 testing has been more readily available. Working with our health department and 311 team, our outstanding healthcare providers, Hartford Healthcare and Trinity Health in New England, alongside our federally qualified health centers, CVS, CIC Health, and partners like Harriet Home Health Services, together have administered 313,000 COVID-19 tests. Knowing the profound damage done when schools are closed, our Hartford Public Schools team did something that very few large school districts in Connecticut or in the country were able to do: to offer some level of in-person instruction every week. That's a tremendous accomplishment. There isn't a City of Hartford employee who didn't go above and beyond this year. And I want to take a minute to acknowledge our team. The city's IT team set up more than 10,000 devices for students, teachers, and city employees in a matter of weeks, and also led the recovery when we were hit with a massive, sophisticated foreign cyber attack in September. Our budget and finance teams, as well as our treasurer's office, shifted to remote work seamlessly, keeping us on track fiscally while fighting for every cent of reimbursement and every grant we could find. Our human resources team helped develop protocols to facilitate remote work and changed workspaces to minimize risk while still leading large recruitment efforts safely. Our youth and recreation team helped keep summer youth employment going in a new way, continued caring for the little ones in our early learning centers, and set up a new network of learning hubs for hundreds of kids who needed a supported, connected place to learn. Our clerk's office and our registrars worked hard to make voting easier than ever and safe in the midst of a pandemic, ensuring that our residents did not lose their vote or their voice in our democracy. Our attorneys helped us navigate a constantly changing legal landscape as federal and state emergency orders changed quickly, and the city took on new responsibilities. Our development services team kept key projects like Park and Main and Downtown North on track, facilitated outdoor dining, and continued to lay the groundwork for more growth to come. And with partners like the Hartford Foundation, HEDCO, SAMA, and Capital for Change, they also administered the first and the largest small business grant program in Connecticut at the local level, distributing $2 million to 173 small businesses, 72% of them owned by women or people of color. Our 311 team handled all the normal calls they get, but they also scheduled 34,000 testing appointments and coordinated hundreds of rides to testing and vaccination sites. Now, for the majority of folks on our team, of course, there was no such thing as working remotely. They were on duty, in person, every single day. Even as they delivered those 85,000 meals and deep-cleaned isolation centers and city buildings, our public works team kept up their core mission, from parks to streets to sanitation, and they made our city proud in storm after snowstorm this winter. Our 911 dispatchers continued to handle the huge volume of calls, and on top of that, they kept pushing the vital and complex work of upgrading new technology. Our firefighters, as usual, responded to more calls and more fires than any department in the state. But they also responded to nearly 2,500 suspected COVID-19 medical calls. And they became one of only 87 out of 26,000 fire departments in the country to be both internationally accredited and hold an ISO Class 1 designation. Our police facilitated nearly 200 protests with professionalism and skill. And as cities across the country saw shootings spike dramatically, they worked with community partners to respond to a sharp rise in gun violence in our community last fall. And all told, they took more than 250 guns off the street last year. And of course, our Health and Human Services Department, under the leadership of Director Liani Arroyo, led our response to COVID-19, communicating constantly, coordinating testing efforts, making sure that all of our decisions were guided by science, not politics, and now working every day to get our community vaccinated. That's a city team to be proud of. And working with our team, we have incredible partners. Governor Lamont and his administration, our state senators and representatives, the Hartford Foundation, the United Way, and the Dalio Foundation, our corporate community, our hospitals, our nonprofits, our small businesses, our state partners, our neighborhood groups, and the countless individuals who work their hearts out for our city. We were able to do the things we did as a community this year because our team embraces those partnerships and because our partners roll up their sleeves with us day after day. So now, a year into this pandemic, it's time for us to beat this virus together. Wearing masks, washing hands, watching our distance from others and from crowds, all of that still matters as much as ever. But the way we will put this pandemic behind us is with vaccines. Victory is in this little vial. Whether it's labeled Pfizer or Moderna or Johnson & Johnson or any others that get approved, every single vaccine represents a life protected and a step closer to recovery for our community. I know people have questions, and that's natural. We'll keep doing town halls. Our community health workers and Red Cross volunteers are going door to door. We're making thousands of phone calls. If you're a senior, you've probably gotten a couple of letters from me. If you have questions, ask. But then, please get vaccinated. The vaccine is how you can visit family again. The vaccine is how we get schools, restaurants, theaters, and stadiums full again safely. It's how we can worship together again. How we can stop worrying about this thing that's hung over our heads for a year. The President of the United States got the vaccine. The Vice President got the vaccine. Our police chief and our fire chief and our health director, they all got the vaccine. Nurses and doctors have gotten it. Teachers are getting it. My parents got it. As soon as we're eligible, my wife and I will get it. If you're eligible, please, please sign up and get it. If not for yourself, do it for your loved ones and your community. And you're in a city where it's available if you're eligible. You can get the vaccine with Hartford Healthcare, either at the Convention Center or at the Meadows. You can get it at St. Francis. You can get it at the CVS in Blue Hills, the Walgreens on Washington Street, and the Walmart on Flatbush. You can get it at the Parker Center. You can get it at the South End Senior Wellness Center. You can get it at our health center on Coventry Street. You can get it on Saturdays at Dunkin' Donuts Park. And we're working with partners to bring the vaccines to you, to apartment buildings, senior buildings, churches. But don't wait. Do it now if you're eligible. And if you haven't been able to get an appointment but you are eligible, let us help you. Fill out our vaccine interest form at hartfordct.gov, and we'll call you and get you scheduled. If you can't get online, call 211 or call us at 860-757-4830. If you have an appointment but don't have a car, call 311 and we will give you a ride. We'll do everything we can to get you vaccinated. We need you to sign up and help us spread the word. Vaccinating everyone will take time, but that is how we're going to beat this thing together. And as we work together to beat the virus and put the pandemic in the past, we also need to begin our recovery together. One of the most important parts of that recovery will be helping our kids re-engage, reconnect with friends, and mentors, and teachers, and heal. Measured in the severity of symptoms and lives lost, the toll of the virus has fallen heaviest on those who are older. But measured in lives interrupted, learning lost, loneliness, it's been incredibly hard on those who are young as well. Our schools are open 5 days a week, but even today, half of our students remain remote learners by choice. And the reality is that among both remote and in-person learners, way too many of our students are not attending as often as they should or not as fully engaged as we need them to be. It's going to take a massive effort over multiple years to support our young people as they recover. But that is exactly what we need to do. The superintendent and her team are hard at work thinking about how we use this summer to benefit students academically. That is vital, but it's not enough. This summer and beyond this summer to next year, we need to make sure that every single child from kindergarten through 12th grade has the chance to do something outside of school that they want to do just for fun. Whether it's music, sports, art, computer science, chess, whether it's at the library or the Boys and Girls Club or the Artist Collective, that doesn't matter. What does matter is that we make a pledge as a community that every young person will have the chance to do something they love to do. To help us reach that goal, I've asked our Children, Youth, and Families Recovery Working Group, which we called together last summer, to convene again for a 4 to 6 week sprint to help us coordinate among the extraordinary organizations we have working with young people in our community. Bringing fun and activity and joy back needs to be at the center of our recovery, and not just for our kids, but for our community as a whole. Like every city across the country, our city has felt hollow and empty without the energy and the cultural life that makes us a city. This summer, we need to bring that back. We'll still be wearing masks and keeping our distance. But we need to hear jazz in Bushnell Park, watch baseball and soccer, dance on Pratt Street, go to a concert at the riverfront, or just hear a band playing on the corner as we walk down the street. And I think we need to set a goal. Beginning at least in mid-July, Hartford should have art and music and dance and sports and food every single day and every single night again. We need to be alive with that this summer. To help make that happen, I've asked our Arts and Culture and Recreation and Faith Recovery Working Group to reconvene as well and take the lead. We've got to show this summer that the beat is back in Hartford. There's much, much more to our recovery. We need to help our small businesses come back and help new ones get started. We can't let the health crisis end only to find our community hit with an epidemic of evictions. And we also need to make sure that the responsible property owners in our community are able to pay their bills and their mortgages too. We need to prepare for the possibility that the large employers that have long brought tens of thousands of people into Hartford each day may not do business in the same way ever again, with big consequences for our economy and our tax base. We need to keep pushing for the revitalization of the commercial corridors at the heart of our neighborhoods. Now, as we tackle those challenges, we'll have some resources that we didn't have before. Thanks to the leadership of Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, Congressman Larson, our entire congressional delegation, Congress will soon pass the American Recovery Plan, and President Biden will sign it into law. It's historic legislation. It will do a huge amount of good. It includes funding to scale up vaccinations, to get checks to families, rental assistance to tenants, support to small businesses, help for parents raising children, and more. It also includes a significant amount of funding for cities. We don't know exactly how those funds can be used yet. We know that they can be used to fight the virus, and replace lost revenue, and address the economic impact of the pandemic. And we know that the funds need to be spent in the next 2 years. We'll have lots of discussions about how to use those funds. We will be transparent and open as we develop the plan. We need to use those funds as wisely, as carefully, and as strategically as we can. This is one-time funding. We cannot and will not use it to boost the city budget in ways we can't sustain. And we cannot and will not just spread it around too thin without a strategy or care. We will use it the best we can to help our community recover and come back stronger. Because beyond beating this virus and beginning our recovery, that has to be our goal. Building back better right here in Hartford. Economically, yes, but more than that, to keep building a city that's healthier, more inclusive, more just. That work's unending. At best, we can make progress and then pass the baton to the next mayor, the next council, and the next generation. But we've tried to carry that work forward even during this pandemic. This year, as communities across the country raised their voices in powerful calls for police reform, we worked together to rethink our approach to public safety. Last summer, the City Council and I set aside funds to design and build a team of civilian first responders who can respond to mental health crises and other situations where we don't necessarily need law enforcement to be the first on scene. Later this month, we'll be receiving a set of recommendations from a working group of local thought leaders and experts who've deeply studied efforts here and elsewhere to dispatch civilians to certain calls instead of police. We will review those recommendations in the weeks ahead, and we're ready to begin implementing the first phase of this project this year. At the same time, we resolved to make Hartford a leader in the area of oversight and accountability. This fall, the City Council and I worked together with our community to fundamentally reform the Civilian Police Review Board. For the first time, the board will have the authority not just to advise, but to exercise its own independent judgment. In the coming weeks, we'll be interviewing candidates for the position of Inspector General who will provide full-time investigative and administrative support to the CPRB. In other arenas, too, we tried this year to do more than just respond to the crisis in front of us. One of those other areas is the digital divide. We knew before this year that access to the internet was an issue of equity. In Hartford, we highlighted the homework gap for years. But this year, it became clearer than ever that connectivity is an absolute necessity for every aspect of life, to go to school, to work, to look for work. This summer, with the generous partnership of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving and the Dalio Foundation, we began an ambitious project to bring free, high-speed, high-quality wireless internet service to every part of our city, beginning in the Northeast and in Frog Hollow. We're building that now. We had hoped to be done in those two neighborhoods at the start of this year, but we've been delayed both by the cyber attack that consumed our IT team in the fall and by some infrastructure challenges along the way. In the parts of Northeast and Frog Hollow where our pilot project is already running, though, we're seeing some impressive results. Over the past month, more than 750 residents have found the network on their own. Students, grandparents, and residents who find Hartford free Wi-Fi on their phones, tablets, and computers. They're seeing consistent broadband speeds. While I wish I could report to you that we're on schedule, I can tell you that when it's done, it'll make a big difference in thousands of households around our city. This has been a long, hard year. The challenges ahead of us are huge, and the recovery will be hard. We don't know exactly what the post-COVID-19 world will look like. But we do know two things. First, in cities like ours, there are no simple solutions, and anyone who says otherwise is just an armchair quarterback who's never set foot on the field. And the second is that when we work together, challenge by challenge, opportunity by opportunity, it all adds up. We know that because we've seen it start to happen. Coming into 2020, before the pandemic, we had an energy and a momentum that we hadn't seen in decades. There was still a long, long way to go, but the progress was real. You could feel it and you could see it. And it wasn't by chance. In the movie Any Given Sunday, the coach, played by Al Pacino, tells his team, life's this game of inches, so is football. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. It's true of football, and it's true of building stronger cities. It's certainly true here. And don't get me wrong, we have some big plays in our playbook. The Hartford 400 plan, which would reconnect our city to the river. North Atlantic Rail, which would put us at the center of a 21st century high-speed rail network. The 10 transformative projects highlighted in our city plan. Those plays could change the game, and we're planning to take those shots. But for the most part, building a stronger city is a game you win by fighting for every inch. And it's a game you win with a team, public, private, business, labor, nonprofit, philanthropic, and community, that's willing to do that work together day after day, year after year. We have that team in Hartford, and we fight for every inch. And we see the future as President Obama did. He said, we see the future not as something out of our control, but as something we can shape. That's why I'm addressing you tonight, not from City Hall, but from the Swift factory here at Five Corners in Hartford's North End. This factory was once the economic heart of this neighborhood. The wages paid here sustained hundreds of families, and the gold leaf produced here decorates the gold dome on top of our state's capitol. And then for years, this factory sat vacant and deteriorating. Like blighted buildings elsewhere in the city, it weighed on the neighborhood. It was an economic detractor and a psychological burden. But today, because of years of work, because of the vision of the team at Community Solutions, because of funding and partnership from countless partners, because of the Capital Region Development Authority, because of the community as a whole, this building stands renovated and renewed. And today, this building is now the home and headquarters for more than a dozen local Hartford businesses: butchers, bakers, graphic designers, green energy workforce development, plumbers, healthcare providers, and more. It's my hope, working together, that we'll soon see this room where I'm standing right now as the new home of the Barber Street Library Branch, the Northeast Neighborhood Library Branch. A beautiful space where kids can learn alongside the entrepreneurs and innovators working down the hall. Those are the kinds of victories that add up, if we work to make them happen again and again. And that's why, for all the challenges we face, I have as much confidence in our city's future as I ever have. For as the poet Amanda Gorman said, there is always light as long as we are brave enough to see it, as long as we are brave enough to be it. God bless you all, and may God bless the city of Hartford.
Thank you, Mayor, for those wonderful remarks. That concludes this evening's State of the City address. I want to invite everyone to join us on our regular scheduled public comment that will start at 6 p.m. Thank you, and I'll see you guys soon.
Every month, people have to make painful choices: food, medicine, rent, and utilities.